Hello and welcome to Reporters, our look at the very best of France 24 from all around the world. In Afghanistan, NATO has begun the long process of handing power back to local forces. The largest contributor to NATO's force, the United States, has started its so-called drawdown, and by 2014, most US troops will be out of the country. Back in September, our correspondents Cyril Vanier and Sylvain Rousseau went to Afghanistan to meet with the 3rd Battalion 4th Marines as they prepared to leave the country. In today's report, they meet them again, this time at home, to find out just how hard it is to resume civilian life after 7 months of fighting the Taliban.
After 7 months in Afghanistan, the men of 3rd Battalion 4th Marines are back at home base in the Mojave Desert. Today they honor their dead. 5 Marines, 5 more names on a list that keeps getting longer. Since the beginning of the war, 1,836 American servicemen have been killed in combat. Raymond Goyette, with the white hat, is a commander in the Navy, 34 years of service. He's seen these ceremonies before, but today he's here for his son Mark, shot dead 4 months ago.
Well, the last time I saw him, he cried too, and we just hugged, told each other that we loved each other, and I think the last thing I said to him was be safe. And yeah, it was just, knew in my heart that was probably going to be the last time I saw him. I wish he hadn't gone, but I don't regret that he left because, again, he made the decision for all the right reasons, and that's how he was raised.
Mark Goyette was with the 3rd Battalion, known as 3-4, the very first American unit to withdraw from Afghanistan. A few weeks ago, we followed the Marines of 3-4 and filmed their last days in enemy territory. A vast stretch of dust in Afghanistan's Helmand province, home to several hundred Taliban fighters. The pullout announced by Barack Obama starts right here, right now. The battalion is packing up. For young Lieutenant Hansen, with 40 men under his command, it's one of the last patrols.
Used to be excited, now it's just get everyone back safe.
It's also one of the last confrontations with the insurgents.
Hey, take cover, take cover. You're good. You're good. Give me a machine gun right up here. West, sir. There's a lot of difficulties that we won't miss. The bad food, the no showers, being dirty all the time, getting shot at most of the time.
For the upbeat Corporal Gakin, this is goodbye. He's looking at his favorite weapons for the last time.
I love it all. My gun, honestly, like having the M4, my 203, being able to blow shit up. It's always fun. I'm not gonna lie.
After 7 years with the Marines, he's decided he's had enough. This is his last deployment. A month later, at last, the homecoming. After weeks of traveling from Afghanistan to Kyrgyzstan to California, this is it. John Gakin's mother has been waiting for this moment for 7 months. John gets to hug his niece, his mother, and the extended family.
Oh, how you doing, Mama Bear?
Hi.
No girlfriend, though. John never thought a serious relationship could work while he was in the military.
Oh, motherfucker, dude. What up, man? Hey, man.
Others are reunited with their best friend, children, or wife. John has done this 3 times already.
Not true.
And despite the hugs and kisses, he knows that being around family and friends again will take some getting used to.
Only one on the refrigerator?
Was I as funny looking as I am now? How about my nose? Did my nose grow any bigger?
No.
No? Oh. You know, deployments change you a lot. You mature over a very quick period of time. there's also that change in fear of, you know, will my parents recognize me or will my family recognize me after I've, you know, done all this stuff.
Yeah, we always know he's an asshole, so.
Pretty much stayed the same, so.
The family reunion graduates to John's favorite bar.
What are you both into?
For a safe return home, and hopefully he'll get out of the service.
And still having the biggest nose in the United States of America. Today.
A drink and a pizza, just what John had been hoping for. Yet, his mind is elsewhere. He can't help it. He misses being in Afghanistan. Even here, even now.
I love my job. I love what we do, so definitely we make it better for other people to live in. So Afghanistan, we go in, we help out. I mean, they got roads now, paved roads. They got solar lights up. They got bridges where they never had bridges before. Their mode of transportation so much better. I mean, I really love that stuff. I love the fact that I can go back and be like, hey, we really helped out in Afghanistan. Like,
John has always loved it. He's been with the Marines since he turned 18. He's starting to have second thoughts about leaving the military. 3 hours drive away, in the sunshine of Los Angeles, Lieutenant Hansen relaxes with childhood friends. Back in Afghanistan, he completed his mission. He kept his men safe, he returned to combat despite several injuries. But although he's proud of what his team did, he does have some misgivings.
But in the Upper Gereshk Valley, if you want to say who controls that area, Taliban and Marines, it's Taliban.
Isn't that frustrating to you?
Yeah, it's absolutely frustrating. No Marine wants to leave an area to the enemy, and I feel like that's what we did. It's their turf now. I'm obviously not there to stop them, and that part is very frustrating.
Just come up here to say hello and see how
This is Joe just over a month ago on one of his last patrols across a Taliban village.
Salam alaikum, salam alaikum. Good to meet you, good to meet you. Tell him that I saw the other night, I saw an individual come in here with weapons. I just want to know where they keep them. They won't tell us. They'll never tell you, but I just want to put some pressure on them.
You're talking to Taliban right now?
Yes. I would love to go back there with 3-4 and another battalion, and I would love to clear that area out. I would love to. But if it's not necessary in the grand scheme of things, it won't happen. So I have to leave that up to headquarters Marine Corps and to the administration to figure out what they want to see happen in Helmand Province.
For John Gakin, it's time to unpack. Over the years, his room has come to look like a military surplus store.
This is our Kevlar, though, my gloves. It's the Marine Corps bayonet.
His lucky bayonet, camouflage, the radio he was wearing when the Taliban attacked. 7 years of his life. And one surprising souvenir, a tiny travel guitar.
Can we do it like that? Something like that?
Continue.
Yes, it was.
It's sitting in a pot.
How can it be dry?
John doesn't have a college degree, but he does have a lot of experience. And after 2 tours in Afghanistan, he's got reason to be pessimistic about the country's future.
I hate the fact that we're pulling out. It feels kind of soon to me. I mean, it might take the Afghan government 10 years to start, flowing, become a good, well-oiled machine, or it could take 20 years. In 10 years, I mean, it could all collapse. The Taliban could take over again. Greed, power, all that. It could take over. It could collapse a whole country.
John is concerned a hasty U.S. pullout could reverse military gains. He prefers not to think about it too much.
Got killed in Vietnam.
And enjoy his time off. His fellow Marine Brian just bought a Dodge Charger.
This is deployment money. This is what we do. Fight for the country and we get a chance to come back and buy something nice.
In the 7 months they spent together driving across Helmand Province, they drove over 3 homemade landmines, or IEDs.
You still get those moments. I know Brian does every now and then. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only Marine, but you know, you see something on the side of the road and it just transports you back to Afghanistan. So, especially in this area, the 3, 4, 5, we try to look for hoax IEDs and then people that look suspicious. So if there's something going on, usually, for instance, everybody just runs into the house. When we start coming around, we know to expect something. You pick up more stuff than you normally would. I mean, that sometimes gets you a little, you know, anxious or a little anxiety, and then you got to remind yourself, hey, I'm back in the U.S. Nobody's trying to blow me up.
At dawn, we catch up with Lieutenant Hansen, back in work mode. He has to be on base by 6 a.m. Early wake-ups will once again be his routine from now until the next deployment.
Yeah, this is the daily routine. Get dressed, try and get into the office about 20 minutes early. Just get ready for the day.
Hansen's not married, so he shares a house with other officers off base. Before setting off on holiday, his battalion has a last ceremony to attend.
That's it, though. It's time to make sure I have all my stuff and get out the door here.
Wounded in action, 13 May 2011.
49 Marines wounded in combat are receiving an award today, the Purple Heart.
Corporal John K. Gakin.
John Gakin was concussed when his truck drove over a 30-pound mine. As for Lieutenant Hansen, he was hit by a bullet that narrowly missed his heart.
And 2 July 2011, first and second award.
1-2 years down the line, I'll be back in Afghanistan, hopefully. And then after that, I have no idea.
You want to do this all over again?
We're going to do this over one more time.
8 September 2011.
As for John, in the end, he's just not ready for civilian life. One way or another, he wants to stay in and possibly join the Special Forces.
If it comes down to, you know, fighting, then of course, I'm willing to fight. So I proved that to myself already, so I'm ready to go, ready to keep going.
Corporal Gakin and Lieutenant Hansen both want to return to the fight before it's all over. U.S. combat troops are scheduled to pull out of Afghanistan by 2014. That only leaves America 3 years to try and win the war.
I'm joined here in the studio now by Cyril Vanier, one of the authors of that report. Thanks very much for joining us today. Your report begins with the fact that, of course, many servicemen and women simply don't return from Afghanistan. The figures are staggering. We're talking about American deaths alone since 2001, 1,832 in Afghanistan. For this year, 386 American servicemen and women have died in Afghanistan. They're high figures, and for those who come back without their fallen comrades, it must be a difficult thing to accept.
Well, it is a difficult thing on an individual level, especially amongst the officers, those who are leading men in patrol on the field. They, of course, wonder whether their actions in any way led to the deaths of those Marines. They wonder whether they could have done anything different, anything better to avoid those deaths. So there is a sort of individual question that they put to themselves: could I have done better? Could I have avoided that? There's also, I think, an increased frustration due to the fact that Marines and soldiers are dying, yet the end of the war is already programmed. So in other words, come what may, however many more deaths they are, the war is going to end, whether or not the war has been won. And I think that's an added element of frustration.
For those who do make the return journey, Cyril, of course, one of the difficulties will be picking up a life that they left behind several months before, a life that hasn't changed, although they themselves have. How difficult do they find that?
Well, first of all, there's a readjustment period, a transition period that's longer than I expected it to be. They spend about a month between the time they put down their assault rifle in Afghanistan and the time they actually arrive back in the U.S. So they've had time to settle down a little bit. But it is true that they have to readjust. For some of them, their life has changed quite radically. Their wife, for instance, or their girlfriend might have had a baby when they were away. So things have changed a lot. A lot of them have young children who've changed a lot as well. For others, readjusting is For instance, Corporal Gakin that we see in the story, when he came back from the last mission, last deployment, he had 2 months of anxiety attacks. And he's just hoping that this time, because he's been blown up less often, he'll just have 1 month of anxiety attacks. So those are the little things that they need to adjust to. And of course, there are also more long-term medical issues like brain injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder. All of those things will have to be monitored over time.
There is, of course, one of the disconnects that must exist between themselves and the families that they are reunited with is the view that they have of Afghanistan. They look back on a war that has a particular significance to them, another significance with the general public. How do they view the war when they come back from it?
Well, that's right. Most Marines, the feeling that I get from speaking with many of the men in 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, is that they would like to be given the opportunity to carry out their mission in full. In other words, see the war out to the end, beat the Taliban, and leave only once the Taliban have been rooted out. That did not happen. So even though many of the Marines individually feel that they accomplished the specific task they were set, there is some level of frustration that at the end of the day, they're one of the most elite fighting forces in the world, and they leave an area that is still in the control of Taliban. So there is that frustration, and that is echoed in the perception of the general American opinion. Several opinion polls, CNN, CBS News, several sources consistently say that a majority of the American public now opposes the war in Afghanistan.
Cyril Vanier, thanks very much for the report and for having been with us today. That brings us to the end of this edition of Reporters. We'll be back, though, very soon for another. Do stay with us here on France 24.